Welcome, fellow seekers, to Legends Untold, where we journey into the past to uncover stories of extraordinary lives that has shaped history. I'm your host, Whimsical Amy, and today we explore the remarkable life of Ahebi Ugbabe, the only woman in Igbo land to crown herself king, a figure who defied gods, men, and centuries of tradition to seize power on her own terms. In the hills of Enugu Ezike, in what is today Enugu State, Nigeria, there was once a girl destined for a life no woman before her had ever lived. Her name was Ahebi Ugbabe, and her birth came in the late 19th century, a time when colonial forces were clawing their way into Igbo land, reshaping traditions and creating opportunities that no one could have imagined. Yet, even before the British, even before her alliances, Ahebi's story began with something much older, much stranger, a promise to a god. Her father, troubled by misfortunes, was told by a diviner that the only way to restore balance to the family was for his daughter to be offered in marriage to a female deity. This practice was not unheard of in Igbo cosmology. The family sometimes gave daughters to shrines in order to atone for sins or debts to the spirit world. But Ahebi refused. The idea of being bound to a god for life, living not as a woman of flesh and blood, but as the property of a shrine, was too much for her to accept. So she did the unthinkable. She ran. In doing so, she broke not just a family arrangement, but a sacred covenant, a spiritual rebellion that would haunt and define her life forever. Her flight took her north, away from her people, into the Igala land and beyond. Here she began her second life. Alone, stripped of the safety of her kin, Ahebi turned to survival. She became a trader, a sex worker, a wanderer, and above all, a learner. She picked up languages: Igala, Nupe, Hausa, Pidgin English. She discovered how to negotiate with chiefs, with foreigners, with strangers who underestimated her. Her cunning and charisma attracted the attention of the Ata of Igala, the supreme ruler of the Igala people, and through him she forged ties with power that would later transform her fate. Years passed, and when Ahebi finally returned to Enugu, Ezike, she was no longer a fugitive girl, but a woman cloaked in influence. Her people hardly recognized her. She had returned at a time when the British were expanding their indirect rule, searching for warrant chiefs who could enforce their policies among the Igbo. Most local elders resisted the British, but Ahebi, fluent in English, seasoned in diplomacy, saw opportunity where others saw oppression. She positioned herself as the perfect ally, and the British accepted her. And in a historic move, she was installed as a warrant chief, the only woman ever to hold that office in colonial Igbo land. But Abe was not content with being a mere chief. She wanted more. She was hungry. She drew on her connection with the Ata of Igala, who supported her ambitions and did what no woman had dared to do. She crowned herself Eze, king of Enugu Ezike. Not queen, not a consort, but king. In Igbo tradition, kingship was a male domain, tied to ancestral spirits, secret societies, and male-only councils. By taking that throne, Ahebi tore centuries of gender norms apart. She sat in councils where women had never been allowed to. She issued orders, led rituals, and built her court. Her reign, however, was as controversial as it was groundbreaking. She enforced taxation, supported censuses, and even demanded forced labor for the colonial system. For the Igbo, who had long cherished decentralized governance and freedom, these measures felt like an attack. It was during her reign that tensions boiled into what became the famous Women's War of 1929, when Igbo women rose in mass protest against colonial taxation and the warrant chief system. Though Ahebi was not the direct target, her rule was tied to the very structures the women opposed. For some, she became a symbol of betrayal, an Igbo daughter who had aligned herself too closely with foreign rulers. But Ahebi was not just a politician, she was also a cultural disruptor. One of her boldest acts was to create her own masquerade society, a domain reserved strictly for men. Masquerades were more than entertainment in Igbo land. They were the living voices of the ancestors, sacred embodiments that enforced spiritual law. For a woman to create one was shocking, an abomination in the eyes of many elders. They dragged her to court, and even the British, who had once propped her up, sided with tradition. Her masquerade was banned, and her political authority began to waver. Still, Ahebi refused to disappear. She built a road, still known as Akpata Ahebi, linking her town to others. She established a local court to resolve disputes. She lived as royalty in her palace, commanding respect from many, fear from others, and grudging acceptance from the rest. She was both admired and resented, a ruler who ruled against every expectation. Perhaps most intriguing was the way she prepared for her death. Knowing that her people might deny her the honors of a king, she arranged her own funeral rites in advance. Gunfire, animal sacrifices, music, rituals. It was to be a burial fit for a monarch. And when she died in 1948, she was buried as a man with male led rituals, a final act of defiance against a tradition that had never fully embraced her. Today, Ahebi Ugbabe's name has not faded in Enugu Ezike. Her story lingers in songs, in oral traditions, and even in shrines where some revere her as a goddess. Her road remains, her defiance is remembered in parables. Scholars like Nwando Achebe have revived her story in books, ensuring that her name is not erased from history. For women across Africa, Ahebi has become a symbol, complicated, flawed, but utterly unforgettable. A woman who refused to live by the rules written for her, and in doing so became a legend. And that is it, guys, the unforgettable tale of Ahebi Ugbabe, a woman who lived as both outcast and monarch, shattering the boundaries of her time. Her legacy remains complicated, but her courage and defiance still inspires generations. I'm whimsical Amy, and this has been Legends Untold. Join me next time as we bring another powerful story from the past to life. Until then, stay inspired. Signing out.